I have loved Clara all my life. We met as children, growing up in the dusty alleys of a neighborhood where hope was scarce. Our families had nothing except the love they could give us and faith in better days. We were hungry, we were cold, but above all, we had a burning ambition to escape this misery together. Clara and I were inseparable. As teenagers, we studied under the streetlights when the power was cut. We shared a piece of bread, laughing, dreaming of the days when we would dine in Michelin-starred restaurants. And we made it. Year after year we worked, sacrificed our nights, endured the humiliations of the rich world, and imposed ourselves through sheer determination. Today, we had everything. A financial empire built with our sweat, a fairy tale home, the most luxurious cars, and a love as strong as it was on the first day. But after 3 years of marriage, an emptiness settled in. Clara wanted a child. "I want to be a mother," she said, caressing her flat stomach in front of the mirror. We tried, again and again, until the cursed day when the doctor gave us the news, "I'm sorry, but you are sterile." It felt like a blade through my heart. Clara supported me, at least at first. She told me it didn't matter, that we could adopt, that we had enough love to fill that void. She looked me straight in the eyes, swearing that she would never leave me, that our love was stronger than anything. At first, everything seemed fine, but then I started noticing something. Every time Lisa, Clara's friend, came to visit, her behavior changed. One day, I overheard Lisa whispering to her, "You can't spend your life with a sterile man. Adopting a child that isn't yours? You deserve better, Clara." My heart shattered. I felt an unbearable weight on my chest. I walked to my room, in tears. I asked God what I had done to deserve such torment. The thought of dying crossed my mind. As the days passed, Clara's attitude changed more and more. I wanted to believe it was normal, that her obsession with having a child was consuming her. But the truth was, we were slowly slipping into an abyss. She, who was once the embodiment of kindness, became distant. She no longer laughed at my jokes. The sparkle in her eyes had faded. She snapped at me for no reason, gave me the silent treatment over trivial things. "You can't understand," she told me one night, tears in her eyes. "You don't feel this emptiness." "We have other options," I tried to say. "It will never be the same." And that night, everything changed. The thought that had been haunting me for months slipped from my lips in a whisper. What if another man did it in my place? She froze. Her eyes widened as if I had uttered something unspeakable. "You mean sleeping with another man?" I lowered my eyes, ashamed. "I want you to be happy, Clara. If that's the only way, then yes. Do what will make you happy." I hoped she would say no, that she would take me in her arms and tell me nothing mattered more than us. But she said nothing. 3 days later, she came to me. "I've thought about it," she said. She avoided my gaze. "I'm going to do it." Then she turned away, leaving me alone with my choice. Days passed. Clara started coming home late, more and more often. I tried not to think about it, but every second was torture. The thought of her in another man's arms was consuming me. One night, as she was away, I sat alone in our vast, empty house, realizing that something had broken beyond repair. When she returned, I didn't have the strength to ask questions. Then one morning, she came to me holding a pregnancy test. It worked. She was pregnant. I should have been happy. I should have held her in my arms. But there was nothing left between us. Just an invisible wall, an abyssal void. I forced myself to smile. After all, this was for her happiness, right? When the child was born, I decided to love him as my own. What mattered was seeing Clara as a mother, happy. Even if, deep inside, it burned me to know he wasn't mine. Years passed. The child grew, and Clara blossomed into motherhood. Yet, her gaze toward me had changed. It was filled with silent contempt, as if, deep down, she held me responsible for something. In her eyes, I read reproach, a quiet resentment, a bitterness that only grew. I had become a stranger in my own home. Then, one day, everything changed. Clara fell ill. At first, it was just persistent fatigue, fevers. Then, a lump appeared in her breast. We went to see a doctor. The verdict hit like a hammer. Aggressive breast cancer. She, who had despised me for my weakness, who had sacrificed everything to become a mother, was now being torn from life just as she should have been enjoying it. Days passed, and Clara grew weaker. She was eventually hospitalized. Lying in her bed, frail and broken, she reached out her hand to me. "Forgive me," her voice was barely a whisper. "I ruined everything," she sobbed. "I destroyed everything for a dream, and now I'm going to leave." I held her cold fingers in mine, unable to speak. "Tell me you forgive me," she murmured, a tear slipping down her hollowed cheek. I wanted to lie. I wanted to tell her everything was fine, that none of this mattered anymore. But as I looked at her, so fragile, I understood something. True love isn't free of suffering, but it knows how to transcend pain. So I squeezed her hand tighter and, with a trembling voice, whispered, "I forgive you, Clara." Her tear-filled eyes softened. A final breath, a last grateful look. Then silence. Clara was gone, leaving me alone with the child. But at that moment, I understood that forgiveness wasn't a burden. It was a liberation. That love, even wounded, could survive pain. So, I wiped my tears and made myself a promise to love this child as if he were my own. Not out of duty, but by choice. Because, despite everything, the love I had for Clara deserved to leave something beautiful behind.